Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and I'm here with my co-host Frank Santopadre, and this is Gilbert and Frank's Amazing Colossal Obsessions.
Very, very good.
Yes.
Congratulations, 12 weeks in.
Yes.
Now, did we already ask people to submit a theme song for us?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Should we? Yeah.
Oh, and find me a new co-host.
Oh, well, you want to find a new co-host.
I don't care about the theme song.
We'll get that
The theme song...
The more important part.
Battle Hymn of the Republic.
You don't care.
I don't care.
The zither music from the third man
Yes.
is fine with you. I'm going to go first this week.
Yes.
And you figured out my movie because I gave you a hint. Famed theatrical manager Jack Rollins died last month. We're sitting here in July.
Rollins and Joffe.
Rollins and Joffe. He made it to 100.
Oh, geez.
And he passed away. And if you guys don't know who Jack Rollins is, Google him. But a very, very famous theatrical manager and producer who was repped everybody from Lenny Bruce to Nichols and May.
Oh,
to
yeah,
David Robert Klein and David Letterman and
Billy Crystal.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
And most famously, Woody Allen.
Oh, and I think what's his name?
Where are you going with this?
Theodore
Theodore Bikel? Harry Belafonte. Jack Rollins, did he really? Oh, that's a new one on me. I like that.
Yeah.
I know he was involved in the early success of Nichols and May. He may have either introduced them or presented them for the first time. Anyway, Jack Rollins was just a showbiz legend, and he passed away. And I suddenly thought, well, he's in this movie. He's in the movie that I'm about to talk about. I can't believe that I've waited, whatever this is, 16 weeks into our Colossal Obsessions before bringing up this movie because it's one of my absolute favorite comedies. And Woody Allen fans are probably already a step ahead of me here.
And I don't know. This it's still a mystery to me. I'm trying to find this out. I think Woody Allen might be Jewish.
Yes, there's a
I don't know.
possibility.
It's a weird rumor.
Get back to me about Jackie Mason.
Yeah.
Because he's on the fence, too. This is, I talked about Radio Days in previous weeks, which I love, but this is another movie from what I think is one of Woody Allen's great hot streaks, the 80s. This is Broadway Danny Rose from a couple of years earlier. And if you haven't seen it, I'll go through the plot, but he plays a schlemiel agent. And I've read in various places that it was loosely based on Jack Rollins, but I'm not sure that's true because I've also heard it was based on other people.
Yeah, I might be one of those, like a little piece of everybody.
Like an amalgam?
Yeah.
And he's a schlemiel agent who represents this lout of a lounge singer, this Italian lounge singer, called Lou Canova.
Yes.
And Lou Canova is basically involved. He's got a wife and 3 kids, but he's having an affair with a mafia princess, which is played by, of all people, and it was an unlikely part for her at the time, Mia Farrow. And it's a terrific comedy. I think it's his sweetest film. It's my favorite performance that he ever gave. I mean, I love Annie Hall. I love Alvy Singer and Annie Hall, but he is so... He's so sweet in this film. He's so likable in this film. He probably his most likable character.
And the funny thing is, the name of this character has become part of the...
right, that's right.
Yeah, it's just part of the language.
The Danny Rose.
Yeah, you go, oh, that guy, he's a regular Broadway Danny Rose.
That's right.
Guy.
That's right. He's a loser of a theatrical manager, and he's got all these terrible clients. He's got a penguin that pecks "I Gotta Be Me" on the piano, and he's got a blind. I think there's a blind xylophone player. I'm trying to remember it now because I haven't seen it in a couple of years. It's full of great gags. Now the character Lou Canova was played by an unknown, Nick Apollo Forte, who was a real singer. Now, I'm doing some extra research on the film, and I find, and I don't know if you know this, that supposedly, and I hope it's true because it's fun, that Sly Stallone and Robert De Niro both were considered. I don't know what that means. They were considered. Whether they actually auditioned.
Yeah.
I think he probably always knew he needed an unknown in that part. Supposedly, our pal Danny Aiello was also considered for the part. Yeah.
If we ask Danny, he'll say he directed the movie.
Danny was also considered for the Jesus part in King of Kings. But supposedly he was devastated that he didn't get the part, and that's why Woody wrote plum parts for him in Purple Rose of Cairo And
I think Danny Aiello was supposed to star in Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
Yeah.
T.E. Lawrence with Danny Aiello. I'd like to see that. So Nick Apollo Forte was just an unknown who got his big break, is fantastic in the film.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess playing somebody very, very close to himself. And then he disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what happened to him. We'll do a little research into it. I also read a rumor that Steve Rossi tested for the role of Luke Canova.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine? And then it would have been
Alan
and Rossi.
Whoa, geez, that's right.
Right. But Joe Franklin turns up in the movie, another connection to us, to our podcast, and Uncle Milty's in it. And I wanted to ask you about the opening scene, going back to Jack Rollins, because the opening scene is in the deli.
Yes.
And they're all the comics, the old-time comics are sitting around. And
I know, Slappy White?
No, not Slappy. No, they're all white guys.
Oh.
And I think the only surviving person at that table is Will Jordan.
Oh, wow.
The Ed Sullivan impersonator.
Who are the other people?
Well, there was Morty Gunty.
Oh, great, yes.
And Corbett Monica.
Yes.
And Jackie Gale, who was famous from Tin Men. And Jack Rollins, we talked about. And Sandy Barron, who was Clumpus on Seinfeld. He was the guy that gives Jerry the pen, the space pen.
He became, had a whole second career.
Right. Did you, and in your travels, did you work with any of those guys? Did you get to know any of them?
No, I don't think
Because I think Zweibel wrote for... Yeah. I think Zweibel told us he wrote for Morty Gunty.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe Sandy Barron and Corbett Monica, too, but we'll check. But they're all in that scene around the table, and it's the little framework that kicks off the movie, the scene that frames the movie. And Leo Steiner, the Carnegie Deli guy, is in the movie.
Oh, yeah,
playing himself at the end. It's got some great cameos. It's a terrific movie.
What I remember about this movie, I don't know why it sticks out in my head. There's one part where Woody Allen and Mia Farrow are running around like a dark attic or hallway from the gangster who's coming after them.
That's right.
And they're mainly in darkness, and Mia Farrow goes, "Hurry, he has an axe." Right. And Woody goes, "He has an axe?"
I'm just a beard, he says. Yeah. Well, there's that scene that's New York as a character in the film a little bit, too, because there's that scene where they go and they hide in the warehouse where the Macy's Thanksgiving balloons are stored.
Oh, yes.
And there's a whole gag with the helium where somebody shoots the helium tank.
Oh, yes.
There's so much to like about this film, but, it's a little bit like our podcast itself. It's about that kind of old show business that you and I... That arcane chapter of show business that you and I love so much. And you never work with any of those guys, huh?
No, I don't think so.
I guess they're a different generation.
Yeah.
Never worked with Corbett Monica or Gunty. It would have been great to have any of them.
Yes. Oh, my God.
On this show. So Broadway Danny Rose, a movie that I'm terribly fond of and wish I had actually thought of sooner. And you, sir?
Okay. My film is... I think it was the late 40s. It might have been 48.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a film noir. And I remember catching it on TV, and it was really odd. It's called Act of Violence.
Act of Violence.
And it has Van Heflin, Robert Ryan,
I've heard of it.
and Janet Leigh.
Wow.
And it's one of these films where... what I love, and especially film noir, was always good like that, because film noir was getting rid of the whole obvious black and white thing of not black and white film, but the whole black and white of you knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were.
Yeah.
And this is a classic film where it starts off, you know exactly who the good guy is and who the bad guy. And then as it goes into it, you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm not so sure now. And
I think TCM plays this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a phone goes off in the background.
Yes.
We'll pretend that
could be our new theme song.
Could be the new co-host.
For the show, yes.
It could be Nehemiah Persoff from the last episode.
But... Because Van Heflin,
Yeah.
he's like a successful guy living in suburbia.
I've never seen this
Yeah,
picture.
very, very nice, honest guy. I think he's got kids and you go, oh, he's a good guy. All of a sudden, we find out he's being trailed by this crazed, limping Robert Ryan in a long coat and a crazed look on his face. And you go, oh, well, this guy's some psycho killer.
Oh, so there's a lot of misdirection because
Yeah.
you don't know who's who.
And then we start to find out, if I don't give away too much, but we start to find out that the two of them were in the army together, and they were in a Nazi prison camp, and there were a bunch of them trying to make an escape, and Van Heflin actually ratted on them.
I see.
And he even says in the film, he starts to realize what an awful thing, and he goes, but you don't understand. She goes, you didn't have any choice. And he goes something like, you don't understand. After that, I ate their food, and I talked to them. And it was like, so one of those film noirs where you
Keeps you guessing?
know. Yeah.
Act of violence. Do
Yeah.
you happen to remember the director?
I think it was Fred Zinnemann.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was High Noon, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, and From Here to Eternity
Yes.
and then lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
The Day of the Jackal.
I'm sure it was Fred Zimmerman.
Zinnemann. Yeah. A Jew?
I think so. Can't be sure.
Robert Ryan, definitely not a Jew.
No. But interestingly about Robert Ryan,
Yeah.
he in movies, he'd play like racist and anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And everything. And but they say off camera, he's supposed to be a liberal guy.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
He's in the setup, too, of another good film noir, Robert Wise picture. You know that film?
Oh, yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
We'll talk about the setup. Speaking of film noirs,
Yeah.
you know that, here we are in New York City, so anybody who's listening to the show who's in New York, the Film Forum is about to do 2 months of true crime.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're just pulling out a lot of these old films, a lot of film noirs, a lot of black and white films. I have not seen Active Violence, but I love the genre. I love the Big Heat and Woman in the Window and Force of Evil. There's so many that I've been actually catching up on. DOA is another one I love, but I haven't seen this one, so I'm going to...
Edmund O'Brien.
Edmund O'Brien.
Yeah. And Luther Adler.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what nationality Luther?
I'm going to guess South African.
I don't think Edmund O'Brien.
Don't think so. No more than Milo O'Shea, who we talked about in the last episode. So, Act of Violence with Van Heflin. I like Van Heflin.
And Robert Ryan.
Yeah, liked him as the bomber, Van Heflin in Airport.
Oh.
Wasn't that him?
Yeah. Was that
I think it was. Yeah, we'll look it up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Shane.
And,
Right.
And wasn't that when he's like going to explode the bomb that somebody punches Helen Hayes?
I remember Helen Hayes.
It's laughable.
Yeah.
How they.
Well, I get it confused with the bomber that Sonny Bono played in Airplane too. So, Act of Violence, a film noir that I will be catching up to.
Yes.
It sounds to me, memory serves, it's the kind of thing that shows up on TCM.
Oh, yeah.
Because they show a lot of those.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of the genre, you should really see what's going on at Film Forum because they've got a lot of this stuff this month. So Broadway, Danny Rose, and Act of Violence.
Yes.
And I want you to know something, that in the opening of Broadway, Danny Rose, Will Jordan does a James Mason impression.
Oh, that's right.
Not quite as good as your James Mason impression.
Oh, wow.
How's that? You take back what you said about me?
Oh, no,
Okay.
but still. I'll take the compliment.
We'll see you next week.